picking up just outside St. Barbe, about a 12-minute ferry ride from the ferry, and I spilled my coffee this morning, so I'm a little lost for words, but our plan today is kind of up in the air. They're forecasting 30 millimeters of rain in the afternoon. Initially, our plan was to go up to St. Anthony to visit some old Viking stuff up there, but now we're thinking we may not. We may head south and find some refuge, an Airbnb or a covered campsite. So we're not really sure how today's going to develop, but after yesterday's big day, we're pretty happy with our progress, so we're not in a big rush anymore, which is nice. Yeah, see you on the road.
As we pushed up the coast towards St. Anthony, rolling through one small town after another, the rain kept at it, letting up just enough to tease us, then hammering down harder than ever. It almost felt fitting. Riding in modern rain gear was still a luxury compared to what the Vikings endured here 1,000 years ago, something we'd soon learn firsthand. We turned left off Highway 430 onto Highway 436, bound for Meadows and the open ocean. The sky stayed heavy and gray, and the rain was still coming down, but it didn't much matter. You couldn't ignore the beauty of the jagged coastline and the sweeping views that came with it. When we finally pulled into Meadows, helmets dripping and jackets soaked, it hit us that this was the same harsh edge of the world the Vikings landed on over 1,000 years ago. It was pretty spectacular. We got off the bikes and followed a little trail up to a lookout. From the top, you could see the jagged cliffs running down the coast, and just off to the side was what looked like a Viking settlement. Right away, we were all fired up to go check it out. As we approached the settlement, we heard the sound of metal clanging and saw smoke rolling out of the first building. Stepping inside, we found a blacksmith, in full Viking character, hammering away like we'd just stepped back 1,000 years.
Cooking tools, farming tools, rivets and nails. Whatever you needed, the blacksmith would have made it for you. But first, we would have to harvest our iron out of the boglands or the wetlands. You would bring this bog ore back to your village. They use what's called a bloomery to smelt it down. You would refine your bloom into whatever you're planning on making, and then we can make all of the magic happen. Now, the blacksmith was probably one of the richest throughout the village. We could have had a shorter life compared to some, but the ladies loved us. Very rich and died young. Made the perfect husbands, they say. But first, I would have to start training my son to take over, because we had the short lives. Around the ages of 10 is when my son would come in and to learn the ways of blacksmithing.
After talking with the blacksmith, we carried on through the village. Meadows is the only confirmed Viking site in North America. Archaeologists uncovered sod houses, iron nails, and tools here, proof that the Norse crossed the Atlantic centuries before Columbus. At the boathouse sat a full-size replica ship. It was sailed across the North Atlantic from Greenland by builder George Schwartz, retracing the Viking route. Standing there, I couldn't help but picture the nerve it took, then and now, to face the open ocean in a boat such as this. After the Viking tour, we grabbed a beer just down the road, and after a bit of discussion, we decided to call it a night around St. Barbe. Prices further south were ridiculous, and even though the rain had eased up where we were, the radar showed a wall of heavy downpour waiting for us if we pushed on. So the decision was made. We found an Airbnb in St. Barbe and pointed the bikes that way. Although it was now dry, we found ourselves battling winds similar to the ones we had experienced days before in Labrador.
Free flowing, sailing with the wind, not knowing how this story ends. Kind and brave, I know you'll find a way. Live your truth and good will come to you. Home, sweet home. Home, sweet home.
We finally tracked down the Airbnb after a bit of confusion and an unprompted tour of a small fishing town. We hung our gear to dry and sat down to a solid meal. Afterwards, we pulled out a paper map and traced the route we'd covered so far. There was something satisfying about putting pen to paper and seeing the kilometers we'd knocked down. We turned in early, knowing tomorrow would bring some of the best riding yet, through Gross Morn and the Tablelands.